Earlier this week, a jury found the father of a Georgia school shooter guilty of all 27 charges against him, including second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. His son, who carried out the deadly shooting, is still waiting for his trial. 9 News legal analyst Whitney Traylor joins us here to talk more about this case. So the first question we have for Whitney this morning: how unusual is it for a parent to be charged or have to face trial because of a crime that their child committed?
Right, it's unusual, and it's something that we're moving forward, moving towards, actually. In the first case, actually, where a parent was charged with respect to a mass shooting was in 2024. So this is something new. Now, parents are always can be liable in every state for what their kids do, either common law or statutory. But with respect to these mass shootings, this has been something very new. And like I said, the first case was the Crumleys in Michigan in 2024. Right. And the cases were similar because in both cases, both the Crumleys case and in the Georgia case with Colin Gray, both the parents bought the weapon. The children were showing mental health issues, very significant mental health issues, and the parents didn't lock up the guns. So there were all these factors that were fairly significant that I think resulted in this conviction.
I think you hit on some of the answers to this next question right there, but I'm going to ask anyway. In this specific case, the Georgia school shooting case, why do you think the father was convicted in this case specifically?
Well, I think it was because of the facts, and there were a lot of red flags. For example, he had a picture of the Parkland, Florida shooter on his wall, the young man. The father had bought the weapon. It was really interesting because the mom had actually looked up parental responsibility for mass shootings and saw the Crumley case. Once she saw it, she actually called the dad and said, because they lived apart, they were somewhat estranged, she said, lock up the weapons. The dad said no and had a really weird response and said that would create a whole crap show, essentially. Right, and so the mom also watched the Crumley documentary with her son. So there were significant red flags here that the father apparently ignored.
So let's compare it to a case that we know here closer to home, the Evergreen High School shooting just a few months ago, last fall. Why are these two being handled differently, or could there be eventually some similarities in how these cases are handled?
Well, the Evergreen case is tragic, and I know that was very hurtful for a lot of that community when the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office chose not to bring charges. And really the difference was in Evergreen, the young man was not showing any signs of mental health. The weapon was actually locked up. The father said, I don't know how he got it. The only time he had access was when I opened it and was cleaning the weapon. So because of that, it was the firearm was a family heirloom. So all of these factors, they said, we don't think, the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office said, we don't think there's probable cause. And then, of course, the DA didn't prosecute. Because in those decisions, they always have to make the determination, can we actually get a conviction? And so with the Evergreen case, it was very much attenuated. The parents didn't know much. They were essentially paying attention. And as I said, in Georgia, there were numerous red flags.
I think that makes perfect sense, actually. More broader, generally speaking, parent liability standards, how have they changed overall in recent years? Yeah,
well, they've changed a lot with respect to being prosecuted for these mass shootings. So the first one was 2024, as I just mentioned, in Michigan. Since then, there have been at least 3 others. And lots of parents have been prosecuted, but now we're starting to see convictions. And what's interesting is in Georgia, a very red state, a very pro-gun state, they listened to 2 weeks of testimony, and it was 2 hours of deliberation. So that tells me they knew right away. So I think this is going to set precedent. This is going to be something, going forward, because I think this is signaling that people are frustrated with these mass shootings and they want some accountability, because historically they have not been able to get convictions against or go after the gun manufacturers because there's federal laws that protect them. We've seen that change over the last 10 years or so, where there has been some liability. Some of the gun manufacturers are actually settling these cases because they see the writing on the wall. But moving forward, we might have more prosecutions of parents related to these mass shootings.
Whitney, we always appreciate the insight you bring to the show. Thanks for joining us here this morning.